The best leaders to me are the ones who see the bigger picture, even if it doesn't benefit them in any way. It benefits the culture and the airmen of the future. And they're so dedicated to that future fighter that they're willing to do what it takes now to help that person without any benefit to themselves.
Welcome to Veteran Led. Today's guest is Josh White, founder of the HeroFront podcast, and now a team member for Recurrent Military, who has oversight over the Military Influencer Conference, which is where we are right now. Welcome to the show, Josh.
Brother, I've been a fan. I'm a fanboy of John Barry. I love John Barry. He's the veteran lawyer, best lawyer I've ever met. You got great hair. And you helped change my life, my man, because I told you a story a little earlier, and I'd like to just start with this if you're cool with it.
Yeah, please tell the story.
So the story is I was going through, when you're a content creator in uniform, it's an uphill battle. It's brutal.
And you were the Air Force content creator. You had the HeroFront podcast while on active duty Air Force.
Absolutely. And I knew that was my purpose in life because I was doing military funeral honors all the time, and I needed a way to show these airmen they mattered, and I did that by sharing their story. And once I got that bug, I never let it go. And even though I was threatened many times, I stuck to my guns. I'm happy to say I'm retired now. But there was a time where it was really hard. Probably one of the worst times, darkest times of my life. And during that time, you had a program going on where you were highlighting a different veteran each month who really stood out, a handful of veterans. You know, you were doing just amazing things with bringing awareness to our community. And you made this really special video as a surprise. I didn't even know it was happening. I get the video and it put me in tears because I was going through such a hard time. I have never had good news. I was looking for anything to keep going. And you were that voice, man. You provided that to me, that joy that got me back on my feet again. And I just want to thank you for that, man, truly.
Well, I'm humbled, honored, but also shocked because you were the most genuine person, you know, on the airwaves. I'd hear you and you would just be like, hey, let's get into it. Let's go to it. So to think, I always thought this guy's never in a dark place because he'll go to the dark places publicly and talk about those things, whether it's addiction or other things with other service members, and you'd bring out the truth. And so when I heard that, I was kind of shocked. I was like, man, you're the person I was looking to that said, you know, hey, like Josh seems to have it all together. Like he seems to, but I think that's the thing is when you really want excellence in your life, it gets dark, it gets painful. And you know, when you really want to help and share a message, and things start going wrong for you, you wonder, you know, is my voice going to be stifled? Is my mission going to be fulfilled? And it's gut-wrenching when it doesn't happen. And so I'm honored that we were able to present you that award, and I'm glad it came to you at that time. But I got to tell you, you're the inspiration to me. And in fact, you're the one that said, you will have a podcast. You're the one that predicted this.
Yes. I mean, you're the way you see life, the things you talk about. I knew without a shadow of a doubt after we spoke that we would be here one day. I knew it. And I'm really proud of you, man. I'm really proud of you. The stuff you do for us, having you in our corner, as talented as you are, game changer for our community.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to hear that. Let's get into what you're doing now. I love it. So you leave the Air Force and now you've got this job with Recurrent Military, big opportunity. Tell us what you're doing now.
Okay, so I just retired in February. Big life changes. As you know, transition is a hot topic, right? It's that you kind of lose half of your network overnight is kind of how I explain it. Because a lot of your relationships in the military are built on, you know, can you help their career? Can they help yours? More of a transactional. And you don't realize that until you're out and half of that community just drops off. What do you fill it with? What do you do? It was very isolating, very, very difficult time to navigate because that's all I've ever known. I'm a 4th generation airman. My dad was a 12 Outstanding Airman of the Year, as was I. Like, this is in our blood, you know, this is our thing. It's where we have our pride in our hearts. And to lose that, it was really challenging, my man. But I had a civilian job right out the gate, suicide prevention specialist. As you know, I'm passionate about that. I was getting to help all the airmen at Team Eglin. It was a beautiful thing. But unfortunately, with all the budget cuts, with DOGE, I was one of those new positions, and I was told it was going to shut down.
Because they were actually going to move you to the Pentagon.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if we rewound a little bit, right before I retired, I was holding out for that. There was a group of people in the Pentagon who believed in me and my message. They had my back. I'm talking colonels, officers, chiefs, you name it. They had my back, and they tried to create a space for me in the Pentagon in the resiliency office to be the official Air Force podcaster. I kind of was in a way, but this was going to make it really official. And unfortunately, that did not pan out. I was holding out on retirement. I held out as long as I could. But once I saw the writing on the wall, I knew it was time for me to move on because I found my purpose. Once you find your purpose, you have to lead into it. You have to. And so I'm in the suicide prevention role. First job as a retiree, did everything right. Planned it out to a T. My VA, my retirement, my benefits, all of it. And it's from talking to people who've done it before me. And so when Doge deleted my job, I said, wait a minute, this wasn't part of the plan. What the hell is going on? And when you plan something to a T and something gets thrown off like that, very stressful time. Yeah, and thank God and Recurrent Ventures, Recurrent Military, I put on LinkedIn as sheer desperation. Again, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to find jobs, right? This is new to me. I rolled right into a civilian contracting job on Eglin. And so I said, I'm going to start with LinkedIn. People like me on LinkedIn. I'm just going to be real. I'm going to tell them what happened. I'm going to ask for help. Because that's what we need to learn to do. We need to learn to ask for help when we need it, when we truly need it. And I looked down at my phone, and Cortez Riggs, he founded the Military Influencer Conference. It is now absorbed under Recurrent Military, which also runs Task and Purpose and We Are the Mighty and the Military Spouse Fest. Amazing initiative. A guy I've been trying to reach for years with no callbacks. Told him I'd work for him for free. Nothing. It's a busy guy. I look at my phone and holy cow, Cortez Riggs wants to interview me to work on this team, to live my purpose. And by the grace of God and Recurrent Military, they saved my ass, they saved my life and the well-being of my family. And I get to be here with you today because of them. And I'm so thankful for that, man.
Yeah, Cortez is a genuine and humble person. I love the way he carries himself on the stage, and it's the same way, just humble, great guy. But for you to be able to get a hold of him, because hey, I'd love to have him on the podcast too, right? I reach out to people, but I think he's good at figuring out what he wants to do and his purpose and leading that purpose and blocking out some of the noise. And so I think he's going to be an amazing mentor for you. But tell us what you do, because we're at this conference now. It's pretty crazy, about 3,000 people here. And I know you do a lot of the content creation from home in Florida.
Yes. So I work fully remote now. The whole Recurrent Military team is fully remote, believe it or not. They're very forward thinking. They do what makes sense. That's what I love about them. With the military, there's a lot of litigation, there's a lot of red tape, and we often don't do what makes sense, and we know it, and it never sits well with us, right? With this team, if it makes sense, we're doing it, and I love that about them. So I run all the social media right now for Task and Purpose, for We Are the Mighty, and I basically inserted myself in this team, and I said, hey, look, guys, I know my job is not officially the Military Influencer Conference, but you know my passion, you know what I love to do, just put me in. I will do my thing, I will not let you down. I will make sure every person in planet Earth, in this universe, knows about the amazing things we're doing here. And when I told them that, they said, say less. So I got all the social media set up, and I'm here doing what I love, and that's sharing veteran stories. And I've seen the healing take place firsthand. I've had people write me back, message me privately, things I don't share, saying that a certain episode or a certain person, a certain topic that was discussed literally prevented them from taking their own life. And that's what fuels me. When I'm tired, when I want to quit, when I don't want to get up, when I feel like I have no room on my schedule, I remember I'm saving veterans' lives. And I was that veteran. 2008, I'm in Kadena. I'm on the flight line doing 12-hour shifts, no mentor. I'm off on my own devices, and I'm drinking every single night. By the time I get to my next assignment at Whiteman Air Force Base, Missouri, I know nobody. And I'm from Washington, D.C., so I've never even lived in the country. That was more of a culture shock than Japan was. And I started drinking more and more, and I lost the drive to live. It's called passive suicide. I know that now because I became a suicide prevention specialist. I'm trained through Living Works, which is like the most reputable suicide prevention company in the world. And I learned that that's called passive suicide. It's where you're trying to kill yourself, sometimes even unconsciously, through bad behaviors, risky behaviors, because you lost the will to live. I had a heart virus that hospitalized me. That didn't even turn my life around. And so I remember that version of me. And every episode that I do, is for that version of me, is to reach that person who had no one, who had no mentor.
That's outstanding. I appreciate you sharing that, because that is so real, where we sabotage ourselves. And a lot of times it's, why? And, I think when you're very driven, and sometimes it's when you are successful, that it's why is this behavior there? Why is this habit there? Why am I seeing all these patterns in what I'm doing, and really digging into it? And I think that's passive suicide. Yeah. We're slowly killing ourselves, and we don't want to admit it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's pretty deep, and that's real. And I've seen it happen over and over again, in the military profession, in the legal profession. People who you think are fairly successful, and it's, they're struggling and suffering. And, I think, but that's also part of where the strength comes from, the adversity and dealing it, because that's how you get to know yourself in the darkness. When you're in the darkness and you're alone, when your head's on that pillow, that's when the demons come out, if you're not going to address them during the day.
Yeah. And my kids taught me something, because, you learn so much, from mentoring people. You learn a lot about yourself when you mentor someone or you have children. And what they taught me was that there's no light without the dark. And it sounds kind of corny. It sounds like something they read in a fortune cookie. But it's true. If everything was perfect all the time, you'd never even know it. You'd have nothing to compare it to. Those hard times is what makes us human. Those hard times is what makes us know where our purpose is in life, where our heart is. It fuels us, it drives us, and it makes us appreciate the good times even more. You cannot have the light without the dark. And it's this veteran community, it's conferences like this, it's leaders like you who give us that light and pull us out of that darkness.
Now, we've talked about light and dark. Let's get into the opposites, good and bad. Let's go to the AAR, the after action review. Your examples of great leadership and your examples of poor leadership. You don't have to name names, but let's start with the good.
Oh, wow. So, a person once told me you don't need an army of good leaders. You just need one. You need one good mentor. When you think of it that way, it makes it a lot more manageable. And I truly believe that. I've had one good mentor at every assignment. That's it, one. And most of them were at my retirement last year, which was a beautiful thing. Some of those folks I hadn't seen in 15 years. Is amazing. But I have to say, the best leaders think farther than a day, a week, a month. The military is sectioned into quarters, right? We don't think long-term, and we PCS and we move so frequently that long-term forward thinking is often to the wayside. And I think sometimes we trip over our own feet doing that. And that's where I'm saying when we don't always do what makes sense. So the best leaders to me are the ones who see the bigger picture, even if it doesn't benefit them in any way. It benefits the culture and the airmen of the future. And they're so dedicated to that future fighter that they're willing to do what it takes now to help that person without any benefit to themselves. To me, those are the best leaders I've ever met. Of course, you also have the tried and true lead by example. And I truly believe that. You have to lead by example. If you're not showing up, getting your hands dirty, no one will follow you, period, dot. It won't happen. Some of the poor leaders I've seen are probably the ones that are the most afraid, the ones that are insecure. And guess what? That used to be me. Okay, so I know how it feels. When you're insecure, you will do whatever it takes to make sure you feel comfortable, even at the expense of other people. When your ego is that fragile. I only put that version of me behind me when I stopped drinking 8 years ago. Once I did that, the real me, my full potential was unlocked. But those leaders, I feel bad for them. The bad leaders, the ones that are afraid, the ones that act like assholes all the time because they think it's the only way. Being vulnerable, connecting with someone, that takes courage that those poor leaders simply do not have. They're too afraid to. And all this bravado and being a jerk and being tough, it's nothing. It won't last.
Yeah, I like that. It won't last, because it doesn't, because you're not always tough. You're going to have moments of weakness. And as a leader too, yeah, being vulnerable, but also, not to the point where your team gets scared. Sometimes it's, hey, I'm scared. I'm going to tell you what the risks are here, but I'm not going to tell you how scared I am.
Yeah. John, would you mind if I ask you a question?
Absolutely. Please do.
So, I'm a big fan of you, my man. Would you mind sharing a story about your leadership philosophy? How did you become this incredible person you are today? Because I know it wasn't always easy for you. I know you probably went through some hard times too. how did you shape yourself to be in this position that you're in now, helping all these people?
Well, I'm not as great as you think, but I appreciate that. I appreciate the buildup. I don't want to disappoint anybody, but it started, I think my first real failure was when I was playing football at College of William & Mary my sophomore year. I got injured and I realized like I was going to have to take a year off, but I wasn't good enough to play. And I had Mike Tomlin, now the Steelers head coach on my team, Sean McDermott, now the Bills head coach. We were FCS, but also I was from Nebraska. My peers that stayed in Nebraska, that went to university, they have 3 national championship rings. And I wasn't even good enough to play at an FCS school, but what we called Division I AA back then. So that was my first time I'd ever quit anything. And that really that was tough. And I went through a really dark period. And I decided I didn't want to go straight to law school. I went to the Army, become an airborne ranger, do that. Well, guess what? I failed my first time through ranger school, but I was going to go back. I was never going to quit again because that pain of quitting my sophomore year after my sophomore season, I never wanted to feel that again. So it was not a question whether I was going to go back to ranger school. No question. So I went back and I graduated. And then I had a great career and I got out to go to law school. And, law school was the first time I ever had an academic scholarship. I did really well, but then I got out and realized they don't teach you how to be a lawyer in law school. I went to go take over my dad's firm, and my dad was a phenomenal lawyer, terrible business person, and basically said, here's the keys, figure it out. And I struggled a lot, and I struggled for years until I had a mentor in the National Guard. I was a company commander in Iraq. I came back, I was going to get out, and they promoted me to major, and I stayed in. They paid for my tuition assistance. I figured, I might learn how to lead more leadership skills. So it was kind of like my education piece was now being a field grade officer in the National Guard. And I was doing a horrible job at running the company. We had substandard team members. I was tolerating stuff. And every time it was a problem, it was like that extreme ownership. It's my fault. It's my fault. I wasn't delegating. I was just really struggling. I was unhappy.
You were holding all the chips.
You're holding everything. And the thing is, I just needed a better team. But the military taught me, the sergeant major always said, hey, they're smart enough to be in the Army. They got a high enough physical fitness score. Like, if they can't accomplish a mission, it's a leadership problem. That was the biggest bunch of bullshit. There are people who just aren't going to make it. And I held on to that, and I dragged a lot of people with me. And I wanted to be a good lawyer, wanted to run a great firm. And finally, I just got to the point where my friend, he's like, hey, and now he's a 1-star general, but he said, hey, you know how to do all this stuff. From the military. Just go back to the basic lessons that you learned as a lieutenant. And that's why I wrote Veteran Led. Because I'm like, I got to get back to the basics. Because I still forget them. I still screw up. And I realized my team was making the same mistakes. And so, I can tell you, I've been through some really tough stuff this past year. Like, it doesn't end.
It doesn't, no.
But I was at a point where I was going to, leave the practice of law. I was like, I'm done with this. But then I realized I was happiest when I was the officer candidate school commander and training these young leaders. I thought, why can't I do that in the practice of law? Especially our veterans, we got this great mission. We want to get veterans all the disability benefits they earned. We get to represent America's heroes. We get to choose who we're going to be a hero to. This is awesome. But I need a team that can do it. And when I didn't have that team, and when I held everything, it was soul crushing. It was like, I want to quit. I want this to end. But those dark times, right? It's seeing the leaders and the mentors. Yeah. They always appear at the right time.
They do.
The master appears when the student is ready.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And usually we're not ready till we're getting our fucking asses beat into the ground. That's the problem. The problem is we're not ready to listen until we're ready to quit. And then but I didn't want to quit. And so for me, it was, I was just beat down, and I was going through a lot of things. And my first divorce, I own that. Like, I was a terrible father and husband. I deployed when my daughter was 4 years old, company commander in Iraq. I came back, or 4 months old. I came back, and my, now ex-wife was like, why aren't you here? Because I was running the business, holding on to everything, working 80 hours a week. She's like, you were gone for 18 months, 12 months of deployment, 6 months, train up and come back. And she's like, you aren't here now. And I was like, yeah, but I gotta do this. I gotta make the business. I gotta make more money. I gotta keep us alive. And it got to the point where I finally realized, I wasn't doing it for my family. I was doing it for me. And there was almost an addiction to it. Now, it's a healthy addiction, don't get me wrong, but you got to carve out that time. And I think if you don't, you go to the dark places, and it gets bad. You engage in a lot of self-destructive behavior, and we've all done it. And when you're engaged in that behavior, sometimes you got to ask yourself why. You got to love yourself, really love who you are. And if you don't, if you do, you can overcome things because you can give yourself grace, and you can forgive yourself, because guess what? You're going to fuck up. We all do. But if you can really love yourself and give yourself grace, and love the people they're on your team, and the people you're helping, and love your mission, man, life gets a lot easier.
Yeah.
A lot easier.
100. I love that you said you have to love yourself. if there's one lesson I've learned after retirement, it's that. And because I'm around my family all the time now, and I've realized your family is kind of an extension of you. How you feel about yourself will transfer to the people around you one way or another. So if you are letting yourself down, if you are disrespecting yourself, that is going to transfer to the people you love. It will. I'm not afraid to admit this. I'm back in therapy again because I've realized I've kind of have some anger issues, some things I have not quite processed from my time in the service. And I've had a few outbursts that surprised me. And that frustration with myself and what's going on up here started impacting my loved ones around me. And I knew I had to take a knee. And I'm happy to say I'm back in therapy with this amazing guy right down the road from me. And just having that really healthy dialogue with a third party to help me work through some of that stuff so I can be there for my family. Because if you don't love yourself, if you don't understand yourself, you are no good to any team or to any family out there. You got to start with you first.
Yeah, and this is why I think therapists and just having somebody else who can listen, because they can see your patterns that you can't see, and you gotta fix when it's negative. It's always a pattern. It's a habit. You know, it's easy to start good habits, and it's easy to start bad habits. The tough thing is breaking them. And I think sometimes you don't get to see the pattern. You know, you can't see, right? You can't read the label from inside the jar. It's like you just don't have the perspective. It's why we do the 360 leadership assessments. You can't see everything, but if someone else can see that, they can help you course correct.
Absolutely.
So Josh, because there's a bunch of gold here. How can veterans listening to this podcast find you, Josh White? How can they find the HeroFront podcast? More importantly, how can they find out about the 2026 MIC Military Influencer Conference? Because if you didn't go this year, you missed out.
Yeah.
And then how can they learn more about Recurrent Media and some of the stuff they're doing there? So very compound question, but I'll let you just take it all.
Yeah, absolutely. So to find me personally, it would be HeroFrontPodcast.com or at HeroFront. I'm also on LinkedIn as Josh White. I have all my social media stuff all over TikTok at HeroFront. Literally, if you Google Josh White or HeroFront, you cannot miss me. I have hacked the algorithms. But what I really want to drive home today is, you know, people know who I am. They know where to find me. But what I really want to drive home is Recurrent Military, if I'm being honest. Because this is, believe it or not, my little ticket here on mine says first time attendee. So not only do I work here, this is my first MIC that I've ever been to. That's because of finances or deployments. You know, I mentioned I was in Israel. Something always didn't work out. And now that I'm here, I can see that this is what's healing the veteran community. And the handle that we have is at Military Influencer. We just started a TikTok. I'm going to be running that. I love your help on that too, my man, because your clips have been fire. I want to share your stuff. I want to collaborate. And here's how I imagine collaborators and veterans in our space. We enter this giant wall neither one of us can scale, but I boost you up and you get up there. But here's the problem. I'm still down on that first floor, but you can reach down and pick me up. And together with this collaboration, we can reach new heights. That's how I see it. And so now that I'm, operating the social media space for Recurrent Military, I want to make you guys the stars, right? To showcase the amazing things that you're doing and that's through collaboration. And so if you tag at Military Influencer, if you're at this conference, if you want to share the amazing things you're doing for veterans, please send me a message at Military Influencer. I'd love to share your message or your message, John, with the whole world.
Thank you. And I think one thing I know, the conference, it was called the Military Influencer Conference in 2016. So it was before all these people with no talent who call themselves influencers were prevalent. So this is not about a bunch of people doing videos who have no history, no talent, nothing, right? No, this was about shaping the future with veterans. This is why I fall in line with Cortez's, mission. Like, I want all the Barry Law clients to have a bigger future after they get their VA disability benefits. Like, take that money, take the medical treatment, get well, get security, get safety. Now go out and lead again, right? Build that bigger future for your country, for your community. You have the skills, but you need a team and you need a mission. And so I've always been about the bigger future. What I love about what Cortez Riggs has done, Recurrent Military, and more importantly, this conference is like, hey, no, we need to not just influence each other and help each other, but to help our communities. And he's done that in a very, I think, effective way. And he's very smart about who he's with. Obviously, you're on the team now.
I have the behind the scenes on this guy's brain and how he thinks and how he got to this point. I'm convinced the man's a genius. I wouldn't tell him that because it'd probably piss him off because he's humble. But I'm telling you, his formula, how he sees the community is unlike anything I've ever seen. And I am just so happy that I can say I'm a part of it.
Thank you for joining us today on Veteran Led, where we pursue our mission of promoting veteran leadership in business, strengthening the veteran community, and getting veterans all of the benefits that they earned. If you know a leader who should be on the Veteran Led podcast, report to our online community by searching @Veteran Led on your favorite social channels and posting in the comments. We want to hear how your military challenges prepared you to lead your industry or community, and we will let the world know. And of course, hit subscribe and join me next time on Veteran Led.